And hello, friends and fever dreams. Good to have you. Good to see you. Good evening here in Northern California. Good morning, good afternoon if you're elsewhere. And thank you for joining me as we wrap up the Witchwood Crown. And I will mention more about that in just a moment. But anyway, that's what's going on. Good to see you. Thank you for joining me. As you know, this is all kind of dovetailing here because we are about to go out of town. We're going to Germany for a few weeks, well, 2.5 weeks, whatever it comes out to. And so we've been in madcap preparation mode for that for several days. Big dog Johnny is very sad, and he knows a suitcase when he sees one. He knows, at least to some extent, what it means, and he is moping around the house. And of course, I feel very bad because he's right. He's right. We're going away. We can't exactly tell him why or for how long. Walter will merely attach himself to whatever humans are going to be staying here while we're gone. He's small and slightly senile, and he just wants to be warm. So he will just crawl in next to whoever is here. But Johnny is running through a bit of existential angst right at the moment with the whole idea. He does not like it. And he doesn't protest. He doesn't chew anything up. He just mopes around the house and lies in the middle of the floor looking very sad and pathetic. And it breaks my heart. Anyway, so other than that, not a great deal to announce about the last week because it's literally most of it's been getting things in order to go. Prepping things for those who are going to be taking care of the household and, getting things that we need which has also been exacerbated by the fact that I still don't know where 3/4 of my stuff that's normally in the office is. So, of course, what's even more irritating is when you're having to buy things that you have. You have, and prior to moving out and moving back, you knew exactly where it was. So that's been my particular cross to bear. Not much of a cross, I admit. But anyway, so that's what's been going on in a general sense, and that's why I don't have much to report. I have not been writing this week, so I can't report on any of that. What I am going to be doing is I'm going to be finishing the Witchwood Crown tonight. I will warn you in advance, I was caught by surprise last night. I thought it would take longer than it did to read half of what remained. I was even concerned we might go past the top of the hour. And in fact, the full reading really only took about 20-25 minutes, maybe not even that much. So unless I deliberately start slurring my words and talking, in an aphasic manner, it's not going to last very long tonight either. So just to warn you in advance, and I am going to be cutting out when I'm done with that, whenever exactly that happens. Not without saying a few words, obviously, but basically, yeah, that's what's going on. The other thing I was going to mention is obviously now I'm not going to be on the air for the next 2-3 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Won't be doing this. I don't know what I'm doing when I come back, in the sense that I don't want to just keep reading. I've read pretty much the first volume of just about everything, most of my books, and don't want to read more than that because of copyright concerns. And if I put too much of it up on the net for free, copyright is a weird animal. So anyway, I'm going to try and figure out what to do next. I've asked you about this before. Suggestions are always welcome. I want to find a way to continue to keep this contact and this connection because I enjoy making contact with you. And I enjoy this particular exercise. I just need to think of what the next exercise is going to be, or what we are going to replace this with, since I've just about run out of TAD stuff to read. And I don't, off the top of my head, want to start reading other people's stuff. Unless, I don't know, maybe there's sufficient amount of public domain stuff that I could fill in some time with while I'm figuring it out. But anyway, so that is to tell you that once I finish tonight, going to be finished for at least 3 weeks. I will probably, however, check in at some point and at one of our assigned times that we've been using, and kind of let you guys know how things went in Germany, although I'm sure they'll go fine because I always have a good time in Germany. And I will, check in with you about other stuff that anybody might want to chit chat about. So I think that's basically it on the things that I wanted to tell you about. Let me check in here and see if we have folks that have checked in. And I see we have a few. We have Angie. Hello, Angie. We have Emily. Good to see you, Emily. Pierre. A pleasure. James. Hello, my friend. Good to see you. Isaac. Jerry. Oh, sorry. Mr. Unangst. Tracy. That's Tracy McClatchy. Barban. Claudia. Hello, Claudia. Kelly. Good to see you. Ray Weatherford. Tim Speckens. Jeremy, my buddy. Jeremy, by the way, is one of the people who's been a lot of help over the years with this whole new Ostenard series. So that's Jeremy has been a hero in that particular way, along with Angela, who you probably don't know, Angela Welchel, and Ron Hyde and Ilva von Leunheisen, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Ilva, you're going to have to remind me of the correct pronunciation. But anyway, those people have all been very, very involved because they all know the first trilogy better than I do because they've read it more times than I have. Anyway, so just wanted to mention that's the Jeremy who is on the list here. Christy, good to see you, Christy. Susan Shamblin, a pleasure. Alexandra, hello, hello. Leah or Leia. Leia. I think it's Leia. I was told at one point, but I've forgotten. James, who has just stopped in, and Chenoa, or Chenoa. And that's another one I need help with the pronunciation of. So feel free to tell me, and I will try to remember to go back and check the posts. I will check the posts. I'm pronouncing it Chenoa because it's like Genoa, the Italian city where I think Columbus was from, Cristoforo Colombo, but I might not be pronouncing it correctly. So anyway, good to see you all. Oh, my wife popped in. Hello, sweetie. And fortunately for me, she will be traveling with me, which is the most important thing for travel, is to have a good travel partner. And so I will be looking forward to that, and we will be off tomorrow. Yeah, we're flying tomorrow. Anyway, so good to see you all. Lovely to check in with you. For those who have just showed up, I will reiterate that the reading tonight... Oh, come back here, you silly thing. I've lost focus somehow. The reading for tonight will probably be fairly short because when I realized that I only had a certain amount left, I divided it in half and then read the first half last night, and it wound up being much shorter than I had expected. So, when you're reading a hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages long book, you don't always necessarily know how fast you're reading. And I certainly didn't, because I misjudged. I thought I had maybe 2 hour-plus reading sessions, and instead last night's went in like 20-something minutes. So, just so you know. And then at the end of it, when I hit the end of it, after a few laudatory words, I will be exiting because we still have stuff to do. And those of you who travel, and especially those who travel overseas or to other countries, know there's a lot of stuff to do. Not that they don't have stuff. Not that they don't have stuff in Europe. They have plenty of stuff, and it's perfectly good stuff. But it's a lot easier to take the stuff you need with you instead of having to shop all the time. And one of the things about a book tour is you are not lingering most of the time. You are city to city to city to city. And usually, if your publishers are doing a good job of utilizing you while you're there, you don't have a lot of spare time. Quite oftentimes you're traveling in the early part of the day, and then you get in and you check into your hotel and you go out and do an event, or you stop and do some signings somewhere, and then you go out and do an event in the evening, and quite oftentimes go out with the people from the event or a bookstore or whatever, and get back late at night, and then get up the next day and start traveling to the next place. So there's not a lot of time along the way to do things, let alone anything touristy, which is not a complaint. I mean, the thing is that I feel like all these years I have been filing away places that I like and would be very happy to go back to as a tourist or at least as a visitor. So it's okay, it's all right, but it does mean that you have to be pretty much planned ahead of time, that you're not going to get a chance to go find a laundromat and wash things, and you're not going to find a whole lot of time. Like one of my first trips to Germany, or one of my early trips to Germany, I was in desperate need. My clothes, my suit, which I was wearing at the time, got very wrinkled. So I was walking all over, I don't remember where I was, whether it was Stuttgart or Frankfurt, maybe it was Frankfurt, and looking for a Reisebügeleisen, which is basically a travel iron, like a steam iron thing. And everybody just looked at me like I was crazy. And I checked several times to make sure I had the right word. Reise, travel, Bügeleisen, iron. If I'm getting it wrong now, that's many years ago, so I may have misspoken the middle word or something. But anyway, so everybody just stared at me like, what are you talking about? What's a travel iron? I think eventually I had to give up on it. I just couldn't find it. I think I had to put my suit under my mattress or something to try and flatten some of the creases out of it. Anyway, so with no further ado, although much ado about nothing is one of my specialties, with no further ado, I am going to go ahead and start reading the last part of the Witchwood Crown. Now, if you have not yet heard last night's reading, I will just bring you quickly up to date on it. We had Tiamat and his friend Angus, who is from Hernistir originally. And Angus and Tiamat questioned the guy who tried to stab Count Eolair, and figure out why he would have tried to do a thing like that when he'd been working in the castle kitchens for years. He wasn't somebody who just showed up like an assassin or something like that. And all he kept saying was things about how he had been summoned, that he had failed, and now he would have to face her, and various things like that. And clearly very confused, didn't know exactly why, except that this voice that he considered to be the Morriga, who is a kind of a dark goddess of war and suffering among the Hernistiri, that the Morriga was responsible and had summoned him and told him what to do. So after that segment, where the last thing they heard from this guy was him using words that sounded very much like the words that Tiamat had read in the Forbidden Book that Brother Eitan had found, the treatise on the etheric whispers. And that was, to them was quite chilling to hear the words from that forbidden book being cited by the guy who tried to kill Eolair. Then we had a section with Pasivales. Pasivales was about to take some downtime and go up to his secret room and just kind of get away from everything for a while, when Princess Idela, the widow of John Josua, Simon and Miriam L's dead son, caught up to him and was being very kittenish and wanting to spend some time with him. And he was a little worried, but she kept saying, it's okay, there's nobody around. Everybody's down on the lower floor. Nobody's here, and they were on this staircase. And he was just about to reluctantly take her with him to this private room that they have shared other times, when she said, "Oh, and you dropped this," and handed him, Pasivales, a letter that he had dropped. And as he looked at it, he realized that the wax seal had been broken. And Princess Idela confessed that that she had not read it, but that she had seen that it was from Drusus, who is the brother of the Duke in Naban and is the opponent of the Duke in Naban, which is where Miriam L is headed, because Drusus is getting married. And so Pasivales took it from her and said something to the effect of, "Wait, is that your father?" And she turned around to look, and he pushed her down the stairs. And when she was still alive, after she had fallen down a long flight of stone stairs, he broke her neck and then began calling for help. And that was where we left off. So now we continue with the next section. The funny thing was, the king thought, that although almost everything else that had loomed so large in his childhood, trees and walls and people, had shrunk as Simon himself grew, the hayholt actually seemed larger to him now than it had when he was young. Perhaps because I've seen so much of what's underneath. Perhaps because I have more of an idea of the secrets it holds than almost anyone else does. It was hard to feel familiarity and comfort when you knew that the large but familiar house in which you'd grown was built over an entire separate castle, and a Scythy castle at that, unexplored for centuries and haunted by dangerous secrets. "Aren't you going to tell us the rules, grandfather?" demanded Lilia. "Or are you just going to stare at the ground?" He looked up, a little startled to find himself wool-gathering. "Here now, don't be sharp with the king, young lady, or I'll have you in the dungeon before you know it." Lilia and her friends duly pretended to be frightened, which made him smile. His granddaughter had rounded up several playmates, a pair of Rowson girls, and two boys close to Lilia's own age, young relations of Earl Osric, both in the age between childhood and the serious business of manhood, impatient to be grown. He prayed they could retain their romantic beliefs about manhood for many years to come, that he would not be forced to send them to war. "Well?" "Sorry, Princess Lilia the Stern," he said. "I was thinking about how I will marry you off someday to a fat and bossy prince who will eat all the sweets and leave you none." "No, you won't. Now tell us the rules. Why is this game called Holly King?" "Because that was the name of a Hernesteri king who long ago ruled here, ruled most of the north. And he was not an Adenite, but a pagan." "Then why did God let him rule in the hayholt?" "Oh, eventually he lost. He's not the king now, is he? And we're not Hernesteri, are we? Now, enough questions, child. This is a hiding game, and we pretend we are Adenite priests." "We already know how to play hide and seek, grandfather." "Ah, but this is different. Priests do not betray each other." And he explained how only one person was to hide at first, while everybody else would look. And if a player found the person who was hiding, they had to climb into the hiding place with them. Then, you see, the last person becomes the Holly King. And then yes, Lilia, or she becomes the first to hide in the next game. Do you understand? "But if the last person is the Holly King, why would he be the person who hides? I thought you said the Holly King was trying to catch the priests." Simon sighed. "In truth, it is sometimes difficult trying to do things with you, granddaughter." One of Osric's young relations was the first to hide, and Simon, who knew the castle far better than any of the children, soon found him in the back of one of the residence's ground-floor storerooms. He whispered to the boy to keep quiet, then sat down beside him to wait for the rest to discover their hiding place. Soon the darkness and the warmth of close quarters made the king's eyes begin to feel heavy. "It makes no sense," he thought. "When I dreamed, I would sometimes wake up many times in a night, my heart pounding like a war drum, and then I'd find it hard to get back to sleep. Some days I walked around in a fog all day from the sleep I'd missed. But now, when for some reason my dreams have deserted me, I still feel the same way, weary and stupid. Bloody tree, it really isn't fair." It was strange to be playing children's games once again. His own son, John Josua, had seldom indulged in such things, remaining apart from the castle's other children, content to read or sometimes even just to sit by himself and think. Simon could remember him perched in a chair that was too large for him, staring solemnly out at the sky, as though the firmament itself were a book, and young Jono could read what it said. He was startled out of his memories when the older Rowson girl found them and squeezed into the small storage room. She whispered excitedly with the boy, their voices like the murmur of wind in the eaves, but Simon was already floating back to earlier times. Earlier, but not always happier times. What could we have done differently? He wondered, as he had so often over the years. Could Mary and I have protected our son better? But who can stop sickness? Who can beat back fever? The best healers and physicians in the land all did their best, Tiamat and so many more. But it was like standing on the bank and watching him drown just beyond our reach. The remembrance of John Josua's last days, memories so cold and so sickening they felt like poison, now threatened to overwhelm him. He forced himself back to the present, to the sound of whispering children in the darkened storeroom. The second boy had found them and was laughing with the other two. Simon shushed them. Didn't they understand how the game was played? It was important to stay hidden as long as possible, until only one remained, one lone player, wondering where everyone else had gone. Alone. Now that he remembered the few times he had played, he also remembered that he had never liked the game of Holly King all that much, because it was so lonely if you were the last to discover where the others were hidden, warm and safe and giggling quietly, secure in the company of others, so lonely. The other Rowson girl found them now, a little one named Ellie something. She was crying a little from having been on her own. In between sniffs and sobs, she asked, "Where's Lilia?" Where was Lilia? Simon wondered too. It was hard to believe his confident granddaughter, who strode the castle halls as boldly as any monarch ever had, could actually be the last one to find their hiding place. It reminded him of something Mary had once told him. You and I were never scared of the same thing. You were always afraid of being found out, but I was always afraid of being overlooked. The crowding made the small storeroom even warmer. "Shush, you lot," he said, "or she'll find us." But a part of him wanted Lilia to find them because he was feeling a little worried about her. "In any case, don't push. You'll only make it hotter in here." It was getting warm, downright hot, like a summer's night when covers clung to damp legs and sleep would not come. When his dreams had been so horrible in the months after John Josua's death, Simon had nearly cried some nights just from weariness, desperate for sleep. Now sleep itself seemed like something dangerous as it pulled at him, as the quiet voices of the children around him mixed and slurred. Where had Lilia gone? He groaned and stretched, but could not free himself from the weariness that was on him. What if he fell asleep here like some old drunkard? Shouldn't he be out looking for his granddaughter? Even as he started to nod again, he heard new voices. They were distant, barely audible above the children's whispers, but Simon heard them most clearly, as if they spoke in his own thoughts. "Come to us," they said. "It is time. The time is here for you to have again what you lost so long ago." It seemed almost like singing, like a river of words flowing endlessly past. "It is time to come to us. It is time." Startled, Simon sat bolt upright. That had been no child calling to him, but something else, a voice from out of his lost dreams. It is time. What could that mean? No, it means nothing, he told himself. It is only that I am sleepy and foolish. A warm afternoon, a tired old man. But he could still hear noise from outside the storeroom, New voices this time, and growing in strength. "Quiet," he told the children. "Let me listen." "Oh, God save us," a woman was screaming. "God grant us mercy. The poor princess." "Sweet Elijah, save me. Am I awake or dreaming?" he wondered, but his heart banging against his ribs felt very, very real. The princess? Who could that be but Lilia? He cried, shoving the children to either side as he rose and pushed his way through the dark toward the front of the closet. "Lilia! Oh, sweet Elijah, please, let nothing have happened to her." He was suddenly hollow with dread. "Lilia, where are you?" And then the door swung open, and his granddaughter stood there, nothing but a silhouette, a ghost, until his eyes adjusted to the light. Lilia's face was pale, her eyes wide. "Grandfather, what's happened?" She burst into tears and rushed to wrap her arms around Simon's waist. "Why are they shouting that the princess is dead? I'm not dead." He could still hear people shouting, even more of them now, cries of horror and shock spreading through the residence. "Stay with me, all you children." Something very bad had happened, he knew, and nothing would ever be the same. He held Lilia tightly. "Just stay with me, little ones. I'm the king. I'll keep you safe." Afterward. She had found it again, somehow, against all odds, and now she clasped the Witchwood egg close to her breast and tried to fight her way through the chaos. She had stood outside this roiling madness once, she thought, had been able to consider her situation with something like detachment, but if that had ever been true, it had been a long time ago. Now the sky itself had turned to hot gray slush, and muddy hands reached up again and again from the bubbling muck that surrounded her, catching at her limbs and hair, trying always to pull her downward. Even the branches of the sacred willows seemed to reach out to entangle her, to force her back into the endless, all-devouring lake of steaming mud. Every step was a nightmare struggle. Why am I even fighting? Always now this treacherous voice spoke in her thoughts, urging surrender. The heat will only be for a little while, it told her. Then everything will turn cool again. Cool as running water, cool as early spring grass, cool as stones deep in the ground. The fight will be over. You will rest. But despite her breathless weariness and her muddled thoughts, Tanahaya knew that voice was not telling the whole truth. It was the sleep of death to which she was being invited, the cool of life finally departing her body, and so she fought on. Faces came to her as she struggled, her family, her loved ones, but instead of urging resistance, they joined the treacherous inner voice, begging her to give up. "You have fought well," said ancient Himano, her clan lord. "There is no disgrace in surrender, child. No disgrace." It was not disgrace she feared, but obliteration. Tanahaya was neck-deep in bubbling hot mud, tangled in roots, but she knew she dared not give up. Her people were so few now, they could not surrender, did not surrender, would never surrender, no matter how terrible the odds. "We love you, as good as sister," Aditu and Jiriki told her. "We will remember you when you are at rest. We will celebrate your sacrifice." But Tanahaya did not want to be celebrated. She wanted nothing but to see the sun again and feel its dry warmth, to drink the scents on a breeze, to hear the music of wind through forest branches. She wanted to exist. "Give up the egg. It is not worth dying for," her childhood friend Yajaro told her. "No, it is worth living for," she told herself, told all the voices, even as her strength flagged and she slipped deeper into the boiling mud. It is worth living for. Then, without warning, a wind swept across the world. Just a whisper of a breeze at first, then stronger, gradually stronger, cooling the mud, cooling the drippingly hot air, cooling everything. At first, Tanahaya thought it only another attack, but the mud that pulled at her began to turn solid, and after only a few more moments, she kicked her way free. The hot mire had lost its grip, and she pulled herself out of it and onto solid land for the first time in a long, long while. When she did not sink again, when the beautiful cool continued to grow, she knew she could finally stop fighting. The fever! It was a last thought before she let go, before she could finally, truly rest after so long. The poison fever! It has finally broken. Tanahaya, can you hear me? It's us, Aditu and Jiriki. Can you hear us? She opened her eyes, not without difficulty, because the lids were crusted and sore. Where am I? She asked. In Rango Jiao, sister bird, said Aditu, the beloved face bent close above her. It gives my heart joy to see you. We feared you lost, but the healers have done their work. And not just our healers. The mortals kept you alive until they could bring you here. Praise to the garden. Yes, said Jiriki, and there was something in his voice that Tanahaya had not heard before, something deep and profound. Praise to the garden. Poison. My wounds were poisoned with something terrible. What was it? The healers still do not know, Aditu told her. None of them have seen its like before. We are astonished you still live, dear friend. But I failed my mission. Tanahaya had recovered enough to feel shame. I let myself be ambushed before I even reached Azua. Did you see who did it? Tanahaya tried to shake her head, but was still too weak. She felt fragile, no more substantial than dried flower petals. They shot at me from hiding. It was more than one enemy, and the arrows were black. That is all I know. Black, like those of the Hikadaya. Perhaps at the time I did not closely examine their workmanship, and when I awoke later they were gone. She lay still for a moment, breathing slowly, trying to think. How did I get here? The mortals brought you, the young prince and Count Aelair, an old ally of ours. I wish to thank them. Jiriki made lapwings cry with his long fingers, the sign for a sadness that could not be helped. They have gone. Swekandra Jaro sent them back. But we need their help. Aditu sat up, her hands cradling her round belly. Yes, and they sought help from us as well, but the time is wrong for it, perhaps wrong beyond mending. It seems the curse of our two races to be so often at cross purposes. So what will we do? Despite her fear, Tanahaya felt sleep pulling powerfully at her, but she did not want to give up the world again so soon. What we must, Jiriki said, fight on. Give our lives if that is all we can do, because if we lose this time, the ending is unthinkable. It will be worse than what Inaluki Storm King himself had planned. He made a sign against the jealous dead. It may bring unbeing itself. But you are not ready to rejoin that battle yet, Aditu told her. Sleep, dear Tanahaya, sleep. As we say, tomorrow the garden may be closer. But even as she let herself slide back toward exhausted sleep, Tanahaya knew that Aditu only meant to soothe her. The garden was lost, as all their people knew. It would remain lost no matter what, or at least everything good it had contained was gone beyond reclaiming. That was the doom of her people. And that is the end of the Witchwood Crown, unless you want me to read the appendix to you. But I'm not going to, because it would be too complicated and difficult. Okay, so there we go. We made it all the way through the Witchwood Crown. I thank you for your hardiness. It's really true that, reading one of my books, especially like this, where it's being read out loud and therefore slower than most of us read when we're just reading to ourselves, is really a bit like one of these high fantasy quest things. I mean, this would fit in quite well in either an epic fantasy novel or a D&D campaign or an RPG. It is a long haul, and you have all slogged triumphantly through it with me, and I appreciate that. And if there was a medallion I could give out for bravery in the face of verbiage, I would give one to each one of you. You're welcome to make them up for yourself. Bravery in the face of verbiage. Anyway, so with that, I am signing off for a few weeks. We are going to be traveling, and excuse me, I have no idea how, when I'm coming back, jibes with this particular sequence of days that, this, when we normally do readings. So when I get back, I will try to let you know if I'm going to do a get together here, as we have been doing with reading, but whatever we decide to do, there will be some kind of get together after I get back. I will also at least have my phone with me on this trip, so I will be dropping messages on Facebook and wherever otherwise. Deborah is still using that which once was called Twitter. The social media app previously known as Twitter. I am not going to give Elon Musk the satisfaction of saying his dumb new name. But anyway, so with that, I thank you for joining me again. It's always a great pleasure. And I hope your next few weeks go very well. I hope you have many small victories and maybe even some big ones. I hope you continue to take good care of yourselves and your loved ones and your friends, and leave a little energy left over to pass some smiles and kind words to others, because you never know when that will make a difference to somebody who's having a tough time. And yeah, I guess that's about it. So again, thank you for joining me. Peace, and I will talk to you all very soon, one way or the other. Okay, thanks. Bye.